إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا من سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Iblis, may the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon him. He said, قال فبما أغويتني, O Allah, because you have sent me astray, لأقعدن لهم, I'm going to wait for them. I'm going to lie in wait for them. صراطك المستقيم, on your straight path. And then he said, ثم لآتينهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم. And then I'm going to come to them from in front of them and from behind them. I'm going to come from their right side. I'm going to come from their left side. And then he said, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you're not going to find most of them are grateful to you. My brothers, this was the beginning of the animosity between Iblis and the children of Adam. This was when he made his plan clear that this is what I'm going to do. He said, وَلَأُضِلَّنَّهُمْ, and I'm going to mislead them. وَلَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ, and I'm going to arouse within them these false desires. And I'm going to command them to slit the ears of cattle. وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ, and I'm going to command them, so they're going to change the creation of Allah. I'm going to command them, they're going to change the creation of Allah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَنْ يَتَّخِذِ الشَّيْطَانَ وَلِيًّا مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ خَسِرَ خُسْرَانًا مُبِينًا. So whoever takes shaitan as this wali, as a protector and a helper, as a guide besides Allah, then he has certainly suffered a manifest loss. I want to speak about the story and the situation of Lut alayhi salatu wassalam and his people. For what we see today is a manifestation of the plot and the plan of Iblis. Oh Allah, I will come to them from every single angle, from in front and behind, from their right and from their left. And you're not going to find that most of them are grateful to you. Oh Allah, I'm going to sit and wait for them on your straight path. And I'm going to arouse within them desires, and I'm going to mislead them, and I'm going to command them to change the creation of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions what Lut said to his people, alayhi salatu wassalam, أَتَأْتُونَ الذُّكْرَانَ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Do you go to the males from amongst the men, from amongst the alameen, from amongst the creation? Is it the males that you are seeking from amongst the creation? In another part of the Quran, وَتَذَرُونَ مَا خَلَقَ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ, and you leave what your Lord has created for you from amongst your wives. بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ عَادُونَ, rather you are a trespassing, transgressing people. Do you want to go onto the men from amongst the alameen, and you leave what your Lord has created for you from amongst yourselves in terms of your wives, you're a people who go beyond every single bound and every single limit. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ وَأَنْتُمْ تُبْصِرُونَ. When Lut said to his people, do you commit this fahisha, this evil, this lewdness, this disgraceful action, and you see whilst you're seeing? Not only do you commit it, you do it in the open as well. You do it in the open as well. أَإِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِّن دُونِ النِّسَاءِ. Do you practice your lusts on men rather than women? Is it the men that you take for your lusts rather than what your Lord has created for you from amongst the women? بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ تَجْهَلُونَ. Rather, you are a people who behave senselessly. You're a senseless people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلُوطًا إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ. And Lut, when he said to his people, أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ. Do you come with this evil? Do you come with this action? مَا سَبَقَكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ مِّنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. That which nobody from the people has ever preceded you in. It's an unnatural act. It's never been done before. You people are the ones who have brought it up. You people are the ones who have started it. Nobody has preceded you in it ever from amongst mankind. You have started to take your lusts out on the people. And when Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, he came to them with this natural disposition, that you're doing something, Allah has created women for you to fulfill your lusts and your desires in a halal way. You're doing something that nobody has ever bought before you. You're acting in a senseless way. You're acting in an unbelievable way. You're a people who don't think and don't ponder. What did they say? What was their response when they were presented with the natural fitrah? When they were presented with common sense? When they were presented with what is good and with what is pure? فَمَا كَانَ جَوَابَ قَوْمِهِ. And Allah says, and there was no answer given by His people, إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا, except one answer, that they said, أَخْرِجُوا آلَ لُوطٍ مِّن قَرْيَتِكُمْ. Get rid, expel Lut from your town. إِنَّهُمْ أُنَاسٌ يَتَطَهَّرُونَ. They are a people who want to be pure. They didn't listen to what he had to say. They didn't listen to his reasoning. They didn't think for a second what we're doing. Rather, all that they did was say, get rid of these people. We don't want to listen to them. Why? They want to be pure. We want to be filthy. And these are a people who want to be pure. So you know what? Kick them out of the town. Expel them from your schools. Kick them out from the place. Why? Because they're a people who want purity. As if wanting purity is something bad. As if wanting that which is normal is something bad. قَالُوا لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهِ يَا لُوطُ. They said, oh Lut, if you do not stop, لَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْمُخْرَجِينَ. You're going to be from those who are expelled. My brothers, like the people today, those people wanted to silence anybody who didn't approve of what they were doing. Like the people today, they rejected what was normal. They rejected what is pure and were arrogant, because arrogance is to look down and to reject the truth. They were a people who were the epitome of arrogance, just like the people today who are walking in their footsteps. If you don't agree with what they are saying, then you are the criminal. if you don't agree with what they are saying, then they will mock you. And they will seek to silence you. And they will seek to ostracize you. And they rejected any form of common sense. In the face of this blind denial, Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, he was firm, he was strong, and he was the opposite of what many of us are like. Many of us today, we're ashamed to hold on to what is right. Many of us today, when it comes to this agenda, when it comes to this war, we are siding with the enemy. We're sleeping with the enemy. There's two sides, my brothers, you pick yours. And silence is approval. Silence is approval. And silence is not what Lut alayhi salatu wasalam was upon. He could have said, you know, me and my family, okay, fine, we'll leave you. We'll go outside and we'll leave you. You people, you do what you've got to do. قَالَ إِنِّي لِعَمَلِكُم مِّنَ الْقَالِينَ. He said, rather I am from amongst those who disapprove of what you do and are angry and we don't accept what you do. And it's a deep-rooted rejection that's coming from us. It's deep-rooted. Qaleen means it's deep, it's from within the depths of your soul. It's not a normal kind of rejection, not a surface rejection. I'm disgusted and I don't accept what you do because it's not normal. How did those people behave? The people of Lut, the Sodomites, how did they behave? وَجَاءَ أَهْلُ الْمَدِينَةِ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. When those young men who were prophets, but they didn't know they were angels, they didn't know that they were angels. Allah sent these young men to that town, and those young men were angels, yet they were in the form of men. So when they heard the people that there are young men and they're good looking, there's young men who are good looking, they turned up at the house of Lut alayhi salatu wassalam. And they were rejoicing, all happy, and we're going to get to fulfill our desires. قَالَ إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ ضَيْفِي فَلَا تَفْضَحُونَ. He said, these men, they're my guests, so please, please, don't shame me. These men who are in my house, they're my guests. He had an element, Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, he understood about respecting the guests and honoring the guests. These men, they're my guests. Don't shame me. What you're doing, your behavior is shameful. Please, have some shame. These are my guests. Don't shame me. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُخْزُونَ. And fear Allah and don't disgrace me. You're a disgrace to yourselves, but don't disgrace me in front of my guests by behaving in this way. قَالُوا أَوَلَمْ نَنْهَكَ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ. They said, didn't we forbid you from entertaining or protecting any of the people? Didn't we forbid you from giving sanctuary to the people from what we want to do? Lut alayhi salatu wasalam is trying to reason with them now. قَالَ هَؤُلَاءِ. He said, these women, they are banati, they are my daughters. إِن كُنْتُمْ فَاعِلِينَ. If you want to go and fulfill your desires, here are the women folk of the town, get married to them. Here are the women folk of the town, get married to them. That's what he's saying. Here are the women for Allah, that Allah has created for you to fulfill your desires. Why are you going towards the men? And there are a group of kuffar who call themselves Muslims, but they are kuffar. They are kuffar the way Fir'aun was a kafir. They are those who try to say Islam allows homosexuality. They are those who say Islam forbids rape. And so the reason why the people of Sodom, the people of Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, the reason why they was destroyed was because they were doing it against the will of the people. So they say, as long as we have two consenting adults, then it's okay and Islam allows that. They are kuffar. black and white, and there's no ambiguity. They are kuffar the way Fir'aun and Haman and Qarun were kuffar. And this ayah is an evidence against them. Because if it's about rape, then why would Lut alayhi salam say, here, rape my daughters, rape the women folk? It doesn't make sense, ikhwani fillah. It's about this, and the story of Lut alayhi salatu wasalam is the story of homosexuality and how it is completely prohibited, and how the people who started it and they practiced it, they were destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that you will find in their behavior. Allah takes an oath by the life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He says, لَعَمْرُكَ. He says, by your life, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. إِنَّهُمْ لَفِي سَكْرَتِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. They were wandering blindly. They were wild in their intoxication. That's what you find from those people. That's what you find from these people in our times. They are wild beasts, wild with intoxication. And it's just about desire, desire, desire. And because shaitan, he said, I'm going to command them and they're going to change the creation of Allah. These are a people who want to fulfill their wild, beastly desires on other people of the same sex. So what happened to them? What happened to that people who practiced this act? This is in the Quran. This is our religion. We're not ashamed of our religion. I hope not anyway. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الصَّيْحَةُ مُشْرِقِينَ. So the sayha, the crying wail, that torment, that scream, it overtook them at the time of sunrise. فَجَعَلْنَا عَالِيَهَا سَافِلَهَا. So we turned the upside of the town, we turned it to the bottom side. We turned the town upside down. And there are some narrations that the town, it was lifted on the wing of Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam, and it was turned upside down, and it was driven into the ground. وَأَمْطَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ حِجَارَةً مِّن سِجِّيلٍ. And we rained down on them stones of baked clay. This is where it is today. This area is in the Dead Sea. This area today is known as that area of the Dead Sea where nothing grows. The action was so filthy that the land was polluted and nothing grows there today. That's the reality of this action. For others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent them a wind. He sent them a cry. For others, Allah Jalla wa ala, He sent other torments upon them. For this town which practiced this, it was turned upside down, and not only that, it was rained upon by stones from the sky. And the dua of Lut alayhi salatu wassalam is a dua that me and you in these times need to be making on a regular basis. Rabbi najjini wa ahli mimma ya'malun. Oh Allah, save me and my family from what they do. Oh Allah, save me and my precious flowers. Save them from these beasts who are doing what they're doing. Ikhwani fillah, the war has already begun. This war, you have what? Schools. They're going into the schools. And they're teaching young children. They're teaching young children by the age of 5 and 6. It's okay to question your gender. It's okay to question your identity. The young child who is 6 years old, who his mom and dad have to tell him what time he goes to sleep. The child can't choose his own bedtime, yet he can choose his own sex and his own gender. The child is not responsible enough to be able to decide what time to go to sleep to wake up for school in the morning. And yet you're giving that child the power to say, you know what, I don't want to be a boy anymore. The child, he has to be 17 years old before he can drive a car, before he can take on that responsibility. And you give him that ability to change his sex. And not only that, if the child expresses a minor interest, then the teacher has to go and take that seriously and assist the child in that change of theirs. To the point where now, my brothers, there are children who were helped along this path and they had the sex change and they had all the operations, and now they're suing their teachers and they're suing their schools, saying, I was going through a phase, how is it that you did this to me? I was a child, why didn't somebody stop me, sit me down and talk to me, wake me up? So now we're getting counter court arguments and court legislation against these people who helped and pushed the process along. Because the young man, he wakes up at 21, 22 saying, how did I get here? Because he was pushed and encouraged by the system. We have the flags, my brothers. They've taken the rainbow, a beautiful creation of Allah. And it remains a beautiful creation of Allah. The rainbow, look at it in the sky, it's a wonder. It's a miracle. When it rains and then the sun shines and you look at it and you see those incredible colors, this is a sign of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That He creates that beauty in front of you. Yet, were you to go and just pass your hand through it, there's nothing to it. And yet in the sky it looks so beautiful. They've hijacked the rainbow, my brothers. They put up the flags everywhere. They have their Pride Month, and other than that, in cartoons and movies. You need to understand, my miskeen brother, who lets his daughters and his sons watch Disney and films and other than that. And you don't police what they watch. You need to understand that there is an agenda being pushed. That these films are nothing more than programming. And they're programming your child's brain. And then, my brother, you give your child an iPad and you leave him on the internet to just roam free and to be kidnapped by these bandits. And then you're going to cry later on when you lose your child. Social media, and like I said, they're also trying to break into the religion. They also have these shayateen, these kuffar under the guise of Islam, who want to try and normalize it. And the people, the speakers, the du'at, they are scared to speak. They are scared to open their mouths. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given them the tawfiq to do that. And it's time we stand up, my brothers. Because in this war, you either remain silent and you'll be swept away, or you stand on the side of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My brothers, you decide. I went online and I looked at the different genders. And there's like over 70 or 80 different genders. But I want to read to you some of the stuff that your kids are ingesting. So one kind of gender. So remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam. And He created from him his wife, Hawa. Two genders. There's a man and there's a woman. And from them He created many men and women. This is what our religion says. This is what their religion says. Gender fluid. A person who feels that their gender is not static and it changes throughout their life. This could be on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly or a yearly basis. So you get a person who comes today and says, on Monday I'm a man. On Tuesday I fancy being a woman. On Wednesday I don't know, maybe something between the two. On Thursday I want to identify as a traffic cone. On Friday a penguin. This is the reality. This is what your children are being taught. Bigender. A person who feels that they have two gender identities. This could be at the same time or at a different time. Look at the irony, Allahu Akbar. If in 1,000 years or in 50 years or 10 years or even 5 years, if a person dies today, in 6 months' time, they're going to come and they're going to dig his body up. My brother, you will either be a man or you will be a woman. If they examine that body, you will either be a man or you will be a woman. That's the bottom line. So we have bigender, we have demigender, we have gender neutral, we have non-binary, we have polygender, we have questioning. And it goes on and on and on. And so, Ikhwani fillah, this is the onslaught of Iblis and his troops. And you need to understand that if they want to get it into the schools, they have the authorities on their sides. But you need to understand, my brother, that you will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about your attitude and your stance towards this. Living where we do, we will be questioned. Living where we do, we will be questioned. And all I have done today is read for you verses from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All I have done for you is brought you what the book of Allah says about this scenario and this situation. Nobody is calling you to be violent against anyone else. Nobody is calling you to abuse anybody else. But what somebody is calling you to do is to uphold your Islamic identity, to not be ashamed of what you are, to not be an apologist for what you are, to not be a Muslim who's like ice cream. As soon as the heat turns on, you melt. Don't be that person, my brother. Keep your back up and understand, if they have their rights to their belief, we have our rights to our belief. And this is the bottom line. So you either are on this side or you're on that. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. So what then should be the Muslim's attitude? Number one, we put a flag in the ground and we say, we do not recognize LGBTQ, A, B, C, D, and the rest of them. We do not recognize it. We do not support it. It is not normal, nor is it accepted by us. We don't accept it. Bottom line. We do not accept it. Islam doesn't allow it, condone it, accept it. Islam doesn't even recognize it. Number two, we don't call for violence and we don't call for abuse. But we make it clear, my brothers, that this is something which is completely against Islam. It is completely against our religious identity. And it is also something which is unnatural. They want to push the theory of evolution. They want to push the theory of the survival of the fittest. I ask you a question. According to their theory, when that first man and that first woman, they evolved from monkeys and apes, and all of this is rubbish, but this is what they believe. That first man and that first woman evolved from monkeys and apes. What if those two were homosexual? Then there'd be none of us. There'd be no humankind. If you were to take 100 LGBTQ people and put them on an island, within one generation there'd be nothing left. Because they cannot procreate. So even from the perspective of natural, in inverted commas, nature, in inverted commas, it is nonsensical. Next, my brothers, we recognize that if they have a right to practice it, we have a right to reject it. We have a right to reject it. Not just to say, we don't just say, no, it's okay for you. We say, no, I don't accept it. I don't even accept it. Whilst I'm not going to get violent or abusive, I don't accept it, full stop. My brothers, how are you going to protect your children from it? You need to establish a stable family. A stable family with traditional roles in inverted commas, where the father is the one who goes out and he works and he provides and he protects his family. And what is within the home and the food and the drink and the house and the safety, the father is responsible for that. The mother is the one who is responsible for raising the children, looking after the children. My brothers, you need to set up a fortress in order to protect your children from the attack that is coming and that is already happening. Number two, you need to, at the end of the day, Talk to your child and say, what did you learn in school today? What did you learn today? How many of us, we throw our kids out there, we don't even bother to ask them what they learned. We don't even bother to ask them what was taught. Why, my brothers? Then in that case, somebody else is teaching your child. You need to then filter everything that they were taught and say, well, no, we're Muslims, we don't believe that. We're Muslims, this is what we believe. Why are you scared of the schools for? Why are you scared of the schools? Have a backbone, my brother. And the third one is to raise them up on the natural fitrah which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of the people upon. And nurture them and teach them in order to give them the tools. Because my brothers, there's only a matter of time before they come across somebody who is cisgender or gender fluid or identifies as a penguin or identifies as a dog, whatever it might be. And so we need to give our children the tools and the teachings to be able to deal with these problems and make them understand we are Muslim, we have our identity, and our identity, our morals, our code of conduct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not from what society thinks is okay. Because my brothers, there is now a push for pedophiles. They're trying to say that pedophilia is something that is natural. It's a deficiency, or they're born with a certain gene which makes them find young children attractive. Is that what it's going to take for you then? Is that what it's going to take for you to grow up and wake up and stand up and have a backbone? Is that what the level's going to be when they will start having men hitting on your young children and flirting with you? Is that what it's going to take for you to wake up? Because that's the way it's going, my brothers. That's the way it's going. And so we have to wake up and understand that all of this is part of the plan of Iblis and his troops. And all of this is only going to get worse as time goes on. And if you're older than 20 and 30, you'll see how this has grown over the last decade. And so, my brothers, we have to protect ourselves, our children, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He protects us and our children. We ask Allah that He gives us the courage to stand up and speak up. And we ask Allah that He makes us proud of our Islam and not apologetic of our deen. And we ask Allah Jalla wa Ala that He protects and preserves our youngsters and our elders upon the deen of Al-Islam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Establish the prayer, yarhamukum.